Hello and welcome back to the Athletics Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for the Athletics on SI. And in today's episode, we got Dylan Quinn on once again. We got a lot to kind of talk about, with the deadline coming up, and then obviously, the current state of this athletics team. As we kind of do, we kind of just talk about how this team is performing. And right now, they're definitely in an interesting spot. And that's kind of why, talking about the trade deadline is going to be so important. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone right now who is listening, whether that be Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to us, and we cannot thank you enough. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So just to kind of, set the scene for the podcast and kind of the situation the Athletics are in right now, it's important to talk about their last series, which came against the Angels. The Athletics would have, they would play the series well, the first part at least, right? They would have a really good game with Gage Jump on the mound. And then in game two, the Athletics would have an amazing win where they would come back from 7 runs. It was just a great game. And it truly encapsulates why we like baseball. You know what I mean? It was just that good of a game. Jeffrey Springs was on the mound, I believe, for the Athletics too. So getting a win there was also pretty surprising. But in games 3 and 4, the Athletics would, completely crumble. They would, after the win in game 2, the Athletics were at 500 and had 2 more games left against the Angels, who, as we know, Dylan, not the best team, in the American League or in the MLB as a whole. So it was definitely disappointing to see the Athletics mess up that opportunity. I think that's been the story all season. The Athletics kind of get some momentum like that, and then they kind of fall off a cliff. So definitely a really, just a tough series to kind of swallow. A lot of bad things I felt happened in, those last 2 games, which was the reason why we're, in this situation to begin with. But for you, Dylan, what was your biggest takeaway from the series, and kind of how will that affect the A's future in a way, with the trade deadline coming up? Do you think the Athletics will be more aggressive, or, what's your takeaway from the series pretty much?
Yeah, it was a good start to the series. Obviously the two starters looked really good, Ginn and Gage Jump. And then, yeah, you have 2 blow up games in game 3 and game 4. I'm really worried about how this bullpen looks right now. Hogan Harris, he's been struggling. He's been one of Marcotte's go-to guys out of the bullpen, and he's looked real rough recently. They obviously lost Scott Barlow. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit. But they lost him. He's been struggling. Elvis Alvarado has looked like their closer. He had 2 shaky outings in there, and he also had another good outing as well. So, he's kind of looked up in the air. This bullpen needs help, and they need it soon. I'm really hoping that David Force is on the phone right now making some trades, hopefully looking for some bullpen help and maybe a rotation arm. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough series, especially when you come out and win the first 2 games. Just looking to win one of the last 2 games to take the series win, and you're unable to do so. The Angels' offense looked really good. I don't know if it's just the A's lack of pitching or if the Angels' offense is just that good, but they had a few guys like Denzier Guzman, who I've never heard of going to the series. He comes out and he was torturing the A's. And a few really good guys just come out and that they won those last 2 games. So it's a tough series. It's a tough pill to swallow, especially after winning those first 2 games. And that 11-4 that 11-4 win, crazy come from behind win. When you're down 11-4, your confidence is down. You're feeling like you're getting stomped on, but to be able to chip away, have a Jacob Wilson 2-run home run, a Max Muncy 2-run home run, another clutch homer for Jonah Heim. You just love seeing all that stuff chipping away, and then you come back and win the game. That was really awesome.
Yeah, no, I honestly couldn't agree more with all your points, but I think I'm going to piggyback the most off of, the bullpen trouble that the Athletics are facing, right? And I think, in our last episode, I think we mentioned it before, but the Athletics, desperately need pitching as a whole. There's no doubt about it. But I think when you kind of compare starting pitching and, relievers, right, I feel like that gap in, how much priority should go into either definitely shifted after the series. I think honestly relievers could probably be tied or even above pitchers in terms of like, order of the to-do list, right? I think the Athletics, I felt like they were in a solid spot because I mean we've seen the bullpen pitch decently kind of recently. Obviously, it hasn't been the best, especially in the Angel series. They did struggle a little bit in the Pirate series. But before that, I think they were putting together some pretty good games. But I also think, I don't know, the Athletics do need to probably utilize some pitchers better in better situations too. I feel like that could be a part of the puzzle as well. I think during that I think game 3, right? Me and you were texting, and all of a sudden Scott Barlow's in the game, and we just knew, oh, it's gonna get rough. You know what I mean? So I felt like if maybe the Athletics kept getting in for another inning, right? Get out of the jam. I honestly trust him more than Barlow to get us out of that inning. Even Luis Medina, I feel like he's been pitching well. Obviously, he had that terrible game against the Rockies, but if you take that game away, I believe his seasonal ERA right now is a 4.41. If you take that game away, he's pitching 2.94. And I know every game counts in baseball, so I mean I could just be cherry picking. I could do that for any player, but the bottom line is I feel like Medina is a good reliever, and I want to see him more. And I think the Athletics do better in that game 3 if he's on the mound. Same thing with Ginn. You know what I mean? If he is in there for another inning, I think he gets out of the jam, and the Athletics are in a much better spot. Because I mean, we saw the game; it completely fell apart after that point, and it just really it hurt a lot for the Athletics right there. So yeah, just a tough series, but I do think that if you're looking at the priorities for the trade deadline, I think the relievers have definitely gotten more urgent. But like I said, maybe it's just a matter of Kotze not being able to put in the right players at the right time. But right now, just across the board, the Athletics really don't have players who are eye popping outside of the obvious ones like Jump and Ginn. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what comes first. Do the Athletics get a reliever? How do they kind of handle these position groups? So definitely interesting to say. Up next, we're going to go into roster moves. Dylan Quinn, if you want to take over and kind of let us know what's going on with the Athletics right now.
Yeah, so prior to Sunday's game, the A's made a couple of roster moves. They added Matt Crook, veteran left-hander, to their bullpen. He appeared in a couple of games last season for the A's, and he's been pitching down in AAA Las Vegas alongside Joey Meneses, who's a veteran. He last appeared in the big leagues in 2024 with the Washington Nationals. Now he's back in the big leagues with the A's, and I'm concerned about his role. I'm not really sure where he's going to play. He was a primary first baseman down in AAA Las Vegas. Him and Crook both helped the Aviators win the first half, become first half champions. So congratulations to the Las Vegas Aviators on that. And I'm not sure what they're going to do with Joey Meneses, right? Obviously, Nick Kurtz is going to play every day at first base. Meneses is not really that athletic. He's 34 years old, so not really going to be an outfielder. So if they want to slot him in DH some days, they could give maybe Nick Kurtz a DH day. I don't know. I'm not really sure. That move confused me a little bit, calling up Meneses right now, especially because they sent down Alika Williams. He was sent down to the minors to make space. He's batting 500 in his last 7 games. And I actually predicted that he was going to be one of the key factors of this Angels series. He didn't start the first 3 games, then pinch hit once in the third game, struck out, and then got sent down the next day. So I was pretty wrong with that Alika Williams pick. But yeah, batting 500 in his last 7 days, 6 for 12. It's unfortunate, swinging a hot bat, but I guess the thing there is that he'll get to go play every day with the Aviators at shortstop, really get to work on his craft, keeping that bat hot, and then once the A's open up a spot in that infield, he'll be right back. They're trying to get Max Muncy and Jeff McNeil hot again, which makes sense. I mean, they're both really good hitters. So it sucks to see Alika getting sent down after his recent success. And then another roster move, like we said, Scott Barlow designated for assignment. I saw that one coming. He's been having some rough outings recently. He looks lost out there. He lost all of his confidence. It makes sense to get rid of him at this point. It's unfortunate because he was predicted to be one of the higher leverage relievers for the Aces this season, especially after bringing him in on a 1 year deal. It just didn't work out. He was really trustable at the beginning of the season, and then he kind of fell off a little bit. Struggles recently, and he'll be gone now. And then finally, the last move was Luis Severino to the 60-day injured list. That opens up a 40-man roster spot for Crook and Meneses. Uh, it'll be retroactive to his start against the Yankees a few weeks ago, so we'll probably see him in about a month and a half back in the rotation. So Couple of moves there, nothing too crazy. I think Matt Crook had a nice outing yesterday. He pitched 1 inning. He walked the guy, no hits, no runs. So we'll see if Matt Crook is able to hold down the bullpen. He actually had, I believe, a 3.54 ERA with the Aviators, which is very good considering that Las Vegas ballpark, as we saw, very tough to pitch in.
Yeah. No. Uh, yeah. I think it's definitely an interesting you know, uh, a few moves for the Athletics, I would say. Like you said, heartbreaking that Alika is getting sent down. I'm not too sure about, Luis Severino being out for, even more time. I think the Athletics do need pitching right now badly. And, even though Severino has struggled, it's, another pitcher who could potentially give the Athletics, a chance to win. Because I keep saying it feels like 2 out of every 5 games right now for the Athletics if Jump and Ginn are not on the mound, it could go either way. Or it normally will end in a loss for the Athletics. So I would really like to see Severino, come back soon, which is not going to happen. So it's definitely going to suck. Um, but yeah, they just got to kind of wrestle with it and hopefully get through this and end the first half strong. But up next, we're going to be talking about the Giants of super brief. So in game one, we'll have Savali versus Ray. Gage Jump will take them out in game two. That's a game that I'm super excited for because obviously Jump is coming off of another great performance. And I honestly think he is probably one of the best pitchers on the Athletics. I would, a week ago, I probably would have said JT Ginn, but as we saw, he struggled a little bit during his start. I believe he earned 4 runs. I mean, I think 2 of them he wasn't even on the mound for, but yeah, I think that gap between the two players are closing a lot right now, and I think Jump is definitely the Athletics ace, if you will. But it's also I know it's weird to kind of compare two pitchers, right? Ginn and Jump, as I know they're both excellent pitchers. But if the A's do make the postseason, I mean, who would you want starting game one? You want Gage Jump or JT Ginn? It's that close. But yeah, I'm really loving how Jump's pitching right now, and I think that this could be a huge series for him. Because I mean, we got Aaron Savali in game one, and then in game two we got Jeffrey Springs versus Landon Roop. So again, that it's a scary series on paper for sure. I mean, Springs and Savali, I don't really trust them that well. But I don't know. What do you think, Dylan, about the pitching matchups entering the series?
Yeah, I think Savali versus Ray is going to be a good game. Two veterans going at it. Um, and the Aces have had some success against left-handed pitching recently, so I'm not, too concerned about facing Robbie Ray. I think Robbie Ray could also be a good fit for the A's at the trade deadline. Veteran left-hander. Obviously, the Giants probably not going to be a contender, especially in that tough NL West division. So, obviously he's showcasing himself for other teams right now. And Aaron Savali's trying to put himself back on the map. He was one of the most reliable starters in this rotation earlier in the season. Had a few rough starts, went on the injured list. Like we saw, had a good rehab start, came back, rough start. So now he's going to make his second start back from injury. I expect him hopefully to get back on track. I said that last time, but I do really think that he can be a really good pitcher for this rotation. They lack experience. We were just talking about Ginn and Gage Jump, how electric they've been this season, but you can't discount Aaron Savali's experience in the league. And same with Severino, and that's why it stinks losing him. So having that veteran presence on the mound and be a leader of this young A's rotation, hopefully he's able to put a good start back together. And then game two, it's Gage Jump versus Tyler Male. Um, he's a veteran. He's been pitching in the league for a bunch of years now. He's got 10 years plus of major league experience. He's 31 years old, but he's made 11 starts this year, 6.04 ERA, so he's struggling. This is a good time for the A's bats to just hop on it and Gage Jump, just continue with that confidence and hopefully pitch with the lead for the entire game. And then obviously game three, like you said, Jeffrey Springs versus Roop. Uh, I think Jeffrey Springs, we said it last time again, but he's coming towards the end of his opportunities here. He's really got to put something together and give the A's a reason to keep him in the rotation. He's really just walking too many guys and he's getting hit around. So there's really not a lot to like about Jeffrey Springs' game recently. So that'll be an interesting game to see. Hopefully, the A's can get 2 wins, and then we'll see what we get from Jeffrey Springs in Game 3. So I'm going to go with 2 wins for the first 2 games, hopefully. And then Game 3 is a toss up for me. Probably not going to be a win, but if they can win the first 2 games of the series, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Um, and I agree with your number, 2-1. I think if the Athletics are lucky, they'll be able to accomplish a sweep, but I don't know how realistic that is with how kind of inconsistent. The offense has been good, but I'll admit they kind of disappear sometimes, which I mean, it happens. It's baseball, 162 games. You're not going to get, golden production in every single one of them. But I don't know. I don't really trust, I want, as much as I want Savali to do good, I'm just a little, nervous entering that game. So I feel like the Athletics could either lose that one, and obviously the Jeffrey Springs game. I feel like that one is also scary. So if I had to pick a game out of the two, I think definitely the Jeffrey Springs game. I think the Athletics will lose. Or I'm gonna change my pick to game one. Aaron Savali, I think that's the game that the Athletics are gonna lose. I think just the mentality, knowing that Jeffrey Springs is on the mound, is definitely gonna make the Athletics, want to play better and know that they'll have to, score, 6, 7 runs, to stay ahead. All right, so I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. Is that the pressure to perform well offensively is going to be heightened in that game. So it'll be interesting, and it's also important to note that Jeffrey Springs right now, I believe he's like bottom 3 in the league in home runs allowed. I think he's given up about 20 plus. I'm not too sure about their actual number, but it's definitely up there. Also, he is bottom 3 in ERA this season with a 5.55. So just rough pitching from Jeffrey Springs lately. And like you said, Dylan, he's running out of opportunities and he kind of has to prove himself soon. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting series. I think it's honestly going to, be really telling on where this team is. Because if the Athletics go out there, lose the series, then what's the perception of this team? You know what I mean? Are they now sellers at the deadline? Are they buyers still? There's a lot of things to consider if the Athletics drop a series to the Giants. And honestly, you don't want to, ask yourself those questions because, again, it's not like it's a maybe. It maybe could happen. It's more like it could happen. You know what I mean? So definitely the Athletics do need to lock in for that series for sure. It's definitely going to be exciting. I hope to see, the bats get hot, like you said, because I think that is going to be needed in this series for sure without having, your two best pitchers on the mound and Gate. Well, you have Jump, but you're not going to have Ginn, so you're not going to be able to fall back on, a JT Ginn starting the series decider. So it's definitely going to be an interesting series. And yeah, I'm still excited to watch the A's play baseball. And we could be seeing a series right where the Athletics get some of those players. You know what I mean? Because like you said, the Giants could be selling hard at the deadline, and the Athletics, as it stands right now, are probably buyers. And we could see a few players come on over. So up next, I think this is going to be a pretty fun one. We're going to be talking about, trade targets as a whole for the Athletics, whether that be, pitching, hitters, stuff like that. Just kind of, testing the water, seeing what the Athletics should be targeting, kind of things like that. So Dylan, if you want to, give me some players, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the A's have a lot of options here, obviously, especially those National League arms. It's a very competitive National League, so those bottom teams are already kind of having their eyes set on selling, especially guys that are headed to be free agents this offseason. So, a couple of names that I'm really eyeing right now is Marlins ace Sandy Alcantara. He's been a really good pitcher in this league for a lot of years now. He's had some ups and downs, but this year he's really putting it back together. And he would be by far the ace of this A's team and really bring some innings. He leads the league in innings pitched. So, I mean, we're just talking about a guy here that's just going to go out there, eat some innings. So, we don't have to see that bullpen go out there because, like we said, that bullpen has been looking terrible recently. And I think they will address the bullpen as well. But I think getting someone like Sandy Alcantara to eat innings and do a good job in them as well is really going to help this team. And we'll talk about some guys he is going to part with, but I do think that if they have to give us some prospect capital for him, I think it's totally worth it. Another guy, I've mentioned his name before, Casey Mize, Tigers starter, former first overall pick. He's got a really high potential. He hasn't showed it the last few years. The first half of last year was really good for him. Then he fell off a little bit, and this year he's putting it all together once again. I really like him. He's only going to be a rental as he's a free agent after this year. But again, you're probably not going to give up too much then if he's a rental. And if the A's really want to make a statement in this American League West division that is so bad right now, I think that getting a guy like Miser Alcantara to this rotation is going to be really huge. Both pitching to, or as Mize is pitching to a sub 3 ERA. So, I mean, just really good pitchers that they can add and probably won't cost too much, especially considering he's a rental. Aroldis Chapman from the Red Sox is another name I wrote about. I think that adding a guy, future Hall of Famer, 38 years old. Yeah, I know he's pretty old, but he's pitching to a sub 1 ERA. He's been lights out for the Red Sox. The Red Sox obviously not going to be contenders in the AL East, so they're going to look to ship him away. I actually saw a video that they were predicting people for the trade deadline, and they said Aroldis Chapman to the A's. I love it. I think it's a good fit. I think that he would get used every day pretty much by Mark Kotsay, even if he wasn't the closer, just to go out there. Kotsay loves his matchups with the left-handers, and especially late innings, just getting a guy lights out like Aroldis Chapman, and who's had so much experience doing this, future Hall of Famer. And again, he's also a rental, so probably not going to be too hefty of an asking price. Jojo Romero from the Cardinals is my final one. I also wrote about him. I think that JoJo, 3.5 ERA, sits about, and he gets outs. He's a lefty. He does good against left-handed hitters, and again, that's a real strong piece for Mark Kotsay. You'll see Hogan Harris go out there every day to go attack the left-handed batters, and adding another guy like JoJo Romero to that bullpen it's a very A's move, I would say, to make, and I think that he would definitely add a really solid arm to this team, and the Cardinals have already came out and said that they want to trade Dustin May and JoJo Romero, and I think both are actually really good fits for the A's. May is a starter, and obviously JoJo Romero, left-handed reliever. So I think really there's a lot of options on the table. It's really going to be based off of what other teams want from the A's, um, and whether the A's are willing to meet their asking prices.
Yeah, no, I love all those players, but I think if I had to pick one of the players from your players that you just mentioned, I think you got to be Aroldis Chapman. I think that would just be so awesome. Even as like a kid, just watching him pitch, I mean, just amazing. And right now, I mean, he's not slowing down, and the Athletics do need relieving, and especially with how unreliable Elvis Alvarado has kind of been for the Athletics as well. I think it would be a great move for the Athletics to get someone like Chapman to kind of fill that role, and then maybe utilize Alvarado a little bit earlier, because he is a good pitcher, Alvarado. But right now, I don't know if he's the best role for starter. I mean, for closer. But yeah, it's definitely gotten a little shaky when he's on the mound, and that's why I think Chapman would be a good fit. But for me, two players who I, hope the Athletics get. The first one's going to be Sonny Gray. Why not a little reunion? Yeah, that right there.
He's actually right behind me, right there, Sonny
Yeah,
Gray.
that's sick. Yeah, I think
Love
I
him.
think I have a baseball signed by him actually. I went to spring training. I watched him pitch. So, it would be awesome to get another reunion with Sonny Gray. You know what I mean? I was heartbroken when he left the A's initially, but and right now he's playing really good baseball. He has I believe, an 8-1 record, a 3.12 ERA, and a 1.18 WHIP this season. So he is playing some really good baseball on a team that's not doing so good. You know what I mean? So if the Athletics are able to somehow get Sonny Gray, I think this team could actually make a lot of noise in October. You know what I mean? I think if we make the wild card game, you're gonna have Ginn, Jump, Sonny Gray. That's a pretty good, if obviously the series goes 3 games, but that's a really strong opening rotation for the Athletics. And even the series after that, maybe, you get those 3 pitchers on, and then obviously, Jeffrey Springs, hopefully he wouldn't be on the team by then. But I think the ceiling for the Athletics, if they get Sonny Gray, goes up significantly. And I mean, who doesn't love a good reunion story? So, I that's probably the only guy who I like really, really want to get. Obviously, there's a lot of good players, but Gray is a guy who I'm super high on right now. The next player is going to be Joe Ryan. He's been excellent for the Twins this season. He's 5-3, 2.99 ERA, 99 strikeouts, and has a 1.0 WHIP, which is sixth in the MLB. So he's playing great baseball right now. Maybe the asking price is a little bit too much for the Athletics to stomach because he has been so great. But like I said for Sonny Gray, I mean, if you're starting a playoff series and you got, the three pitchers at the top of the rotation, the Athletics all of a sudden look like, a really, really good playoff team. And yeah, but am I willing to give up that much for Joe Ryan? Maybe. Same thing with Sonny Gray. I wouldn't want to give up too much, as like I said, I mean, we have a lot of good players on this core right now, and seeing any of them leave would definitely hurt a lot. But with that said, we're going to be moving into our final segment of the podcast, which is what A's should the Athletics, try to move, this trade deadline, whether that be, for a big pitcher like the ones that we just mentioned, or even, just like little smaller trades, you know what I mean? So there's definitely a lot of options here. But for me, my first player, this one might, kind of sound off, but Brent Rooker, I think he would be a good, trade candidate for the Athletics. I mean, he can still produce. I think it's a 200 batting average, 9, 10 home runs a season. So he's been doing good for the A's despite not having the best season as a whole. He's also been on, the injured list twice, I believe, this season. Maybe a third time, if I'm not mistaken. I know for sure twice, just recently, and then he had that oblique problem, I think a month or two ago. So he's definitely hurting the Athletics a little bit right now. And like I said, a 200 batting average, not the best on paper, right? And I think the Athletics have a lot of options at designated hitter right now. So if you want to like kind of look at it, I mean, you got Jonah Heim, who's been playing good. Him and Langoliers could, play every day, switch catcher to designated hitter. I think that'll work out well. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what Brent Rooker's future looks like. I don't really want to trade him, but I think if you're going to get a guy like Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, I think you got to have a player who kind of headlines that. And I think Brent Rooker would be that guy. Another player, again, kind of, a little bit of a shocker, but I think I'm just going off, strictly value in a way. Max Muncy, I know he just got off the injured list. He's been playing for the Athletics. But I honestly think with how crowded the Athletics infield is right now and kind of how difficult it has been to manage, like we talked about earlier, I mean, Alika Williams had to get sent down. You know what I mean? Just because of how many players Athletics have in their infield who are good, it's a hard conversation for all of them. I mean, at third base, Giloff, 24-game hitting streak right now. Him and Muncy have been kind of switching around, and then Jacob Wilson at shortstop. Jeff McNeil, Giloff sometimes goes there, Jeff McNeil at second base, and then Giloff also goes there sometimes. Nick Kurtz at first base, Shea Langoliers, and Jonah Heim at catcher. But yeah, it is getting a little bit crowded. I think if you get rid of Muncy, I think, the Athletics will have Giloff, who will probably be an everyday starter. I mean, we won't see him take games off as frequently. And I honestly do love Zach Giloff's defense a little bit more than Muncy. It's a little close, but I think if the Athletics want to make some noise, I think Muncy might have to go. But yeah, if there's two players who I think could get traded, I think it would have to be those two. A third player, maybe, I think I would maybe say Carlos Cortez. I mean, he's been really good for the Athletics, for the most part this season. He's kind of, it seems like he's hit a slump. I think he's batting under 200 in the last 15 games, if I'm not mistaken, and it's like lower. I think 1.120. I think that's what he's batting. So he's definitely struggling a lot right now. And if you're the Athletics, you got to ask yourself, do you want a really good, outfielder, or do you want a really good pitcher? You know what I mean? So those are the conversations that need to be had. And I think, those three players right now, even though it would suck to see any of them go, I think it'd be necessary if the Athletics hope to reach their ceiling, before they even come to Vegas, right? So it's just, you got to think, how serious is this team moving forward? And I think that makes, moving some players that much easier. So if you had, players to trade, who would it be? Dylan.
Yeah, I think my first player would be Colby Thomas. He's been a really solid outfielder for the A's, especially Kotsay loves him against left-handed pitching. He hits left-handed pitching well. We'll see, obviously, against right-handers, Carlos Cortez will usually get the start, or Lawrence Butler in that outfield spot. And then as soon as there's a left-handed reliever to try to get one of those two out, they'll go right to Colby Thomas, and vice versa. They'll pull Colby Thomas usually against right-handers. So he's really a one-trick pony with hitting left-handed pitchers, but he's shown the ability to hit right-handers in AAA. He actually had reverse splits in AAA this year. He hit right-handers better. Uh, so maybe Colby needs more opportunities to hit against both right-handed and left-handed pitching. And I think that, like you said, when you're trying to get guys like Sonny Gray or, even Joe Ryan, you want guys that have high potential. Colby Thomas was a ranked prospect. He's a good outfielder. He's shown he can fit at the major league level, and he's got a lot of talent. He's a good defender. He's got a good arm. The next guy is Daryl Hernandez. He proved that he could step in that shortstop role. He actually was hitting pretty well when he first started over at shortstop when Wilson went down. Then he hit a really bad slump and got sent down. But again, he was a ranked prospect. He he does a good job over there at shortstop, but he can also play second and third. Uh, Obviously, his value may not be as high as it once was as a prospect, but again, another guy you throw into a deal. And my last guy, I think this is a very controversial one because he's been lighting up AAA. Joshua Kuroda Grauer. He's batting 359 with an 8.84 OPS with the AAA Las Vegas Aviators. Everyone wants to see him in the big leagues. There's not a lot of room in this infield, and I'm sure a lot of teams are seeing that. And when they're looking at the A's farm system for who they have to offer, I think that if that's someone you have to give up to go get an ace or go get an elite pitcher for this team, I think you trade him. The A's still have Leo DeVries, the second ranked prospect in all of baseball that's also an infielder. They have Zach Geloff, who's looking like an everyday player. Jacob Wilson's locked up. Kurtz is that you have a lot of these infield pieces that are locked up for a long time, or are going to be future starters for you. At some point, you just have to part ways with it. And, this might be the highest his value will ever be. Who knows if he'll be able to do this at the major league level? Maybe he is. Maybe he'll be a very good everyday player. And I think his value might be at its highest point right now. And again, especially someone like Joe Ryan, who's been a really good pitcher in this league for the last few years, you're going to have to part ways with good players. And Joshua Kuroda Grauer is looking like he could probably be a stud at the big league level, especially, 359 through how many at bats? We got 167 at bats. So he's gotten a good sample size there in AAA. Really hitting the cover off the ball. He's their everyday leadoff hitter. He's playing shortstop. He's playing second base. Um, and I think that he might be one of the most valuable trade pieces for the A's this summer if they decide to trade him. Obviously, there's questions with Jeff McNeil. Maybe he could replace Jeff McNeil at some point. But again, I think that you got to be aggressive. This is the year to be aggressive. We don't know if he can hit at the major league level yet. So I would be fine with trading him, and you still have Leo DeVries to come up maybe at some point next year.
Yeah, no, I think those are also really good options for the Athletics. But what do you think about my picks? They're a little
Yeah.
more well known. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that Max Muncy, I really do agree with that as well. I think, former first round pick, former high school guy, actually didn't go to college. Uh, I think that his value is really high. He's shown he can hit at the major league level, and I think he just needs that next opportunity, especially with a team that's not, contending this year, maybe get everyday at bats, really start to get comfortable. I think he has a lot of trade value that, teams will really see interest in. Brent Rooker, I don't know if the A's will trade Brent Rooker just because they've locked him up and he seems like a veteran in this clubhouse. He plays every single day when he's healthy. Mark Kotsay even said when he went on the injured list, it's weird not penciling his name in the lineup. I believe he played in almost, if not every single game for the A's last season. So he's kind of become a staple to this lineup. And although his production hasn't been to, the last 2 or 3 years he's been with the team, I still think that when it's all said and done and once he's healthy and whatnot, he'll still return to his form and he'll really be a staple to this A's lineup. And he's also locked up for a few more years. So I don't think they would give up on him, especially not this year. Um, but with Max Muncy, I totally could see them trading him, and I could totally see teams showing interest in him, definitely more than Daryl Hernandez.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's gonna be interesting. Hopefully, the deadline doesn't gut this team too much. I want to enjoyed this team because I mean, there's just so many electric players everywhere, and losing any one of them would really suck. So I guess my last question before we kind of end this podcast. As do you think we'll see the Athletics make a blockbuster trade? Maybe trading away someone from their core. Langoliers, Soderstrom, Bolte, Jacob Wilson. I'm just like saying crazy names, right? I'm not even going to mention Nick Kurtz. If we trade Nick Kurtz, I don't think I'll ever watch another game of Athletics baseball. But yeah. So I mean, do you see any potential for the Athletics to make a huge trade like that? Tariq Skubal, a player like that, hottest trade candidate right now, great pitcher as well. We could have to see the Athletics give up a lot if they pursue that. So what do you think, Dylan?
As far as trading the core, out of those names, I could see a small chance that Shea Langoliers would get traded, just because I did just write a piece also. His future is uncertain just because of his agent, Scott Boras. He always prefers his clients to enter free agency, test the open market to get the most amount of money for himself and for the player. So getting an extension done with Langoliers is going to be nearly impossible. I don't even think they're going to get the chance to extend him. So he's a free agent after 2028. He's leading the All Star ballot right now. He's looking like a superstar catcher. If the A's are not, if they struggle the next few series and they think this is going to be the highest value they get out of Langoliers. I could see them possibly making a blockbuster with him. But to trade him for someone like Tarek Skubal, I doubt will happen. I don't think Skubal's a fit for the A's at all, just because he's 100% a rental, but he's different because teams are going to have to pay all of their top prospects for him just because of how good he is, and there's no chance he would sign back with the A's in free agency. At least someone like maybe Sonny Gray or Chris Bubich or someone, maybe they would re-sign with the A's following this season. Scubal's going to want $500 million, and the A's are just not going to give that to him. So I just don't think there's any reason the A's should even consider a trade for Tarek Skubal. But I think it would be sneaky move if they traded Langoliers just because his future is definitely uncertain with the A's. You still have production from Jonah Heim, and I think you mentioned Brian Servin in AAA in one of your articles.
Yeah.
He's hitting really well as well. So it would really suck losing Shea. He's probably one of the most consistent hitters on this team. And, if they really wanted to make a blockbuster, now is the time while his value is super high and he's still club controllable through 2028.
Yeah, no, I agree with that take completely. I think, Langoliers stock is high right now. I mean, there's no other way around it. And then when you look, past him, like who they's got next, obviously Jonah Heim has been pretty good for the Athletics. I feel like, he's a switch hitting catcher as well. That's also another player who I would also say could get traded as well if you're the A's. I think, a lot of, production. He's clutch, like I said, switch hitter. And, he's a solid dude for the Athletics. And I think him and Langoliers have been an amazing duo all season long. And like you said, when I wrote my article, Brian Severin, I think he's doing pretty good there in Las Vegas right now. So I mean, I would hate like I mentioned, I'm just for all the players that we mentioned, I would not be the happiest if we moved on from them. But I think just for the betterment of the team, I think it would make sense. But hopefully Shea Langoliers is able to figure it out with Athletics. Hopefully with him and his agent, he can stay for a little bit. It would be awesome to see him in Vegas for more than just a year, I believe. So yeah, definitely a lot of things to kind of look forward to if you are an Athletics fan. Sorry, this one is running a little bit long, but there's just so much stuff that we'd love to talk about. Before this, actually, me and Dylan said we were going to try to go for under, 30 minutes. Right now, we're at 38 minutes. Yeah, 39 just now. So we definitely got to figure out how to cut things down, but there's just so much to talk about, and we're so thankful to be talking to you guys again. But yeah, after this podcast, if you're still here, that is, make sure to follow me and Dylan Quinn on X. You can see our ats right above us. So definitely, check us out there. We post articles. We tweet during the games to kind of keep you guys updated if you can't watch the game. So we post a lot of good stuff there. And also make sure to read our articles. Just look up Athletics on SI. Dylan Quinn writes some great pieces. I love reading his stuff, and I'm just trying to keep up. So thank you guys so much again for coming. For watching. Thank you, Dylan, for coming on the show. It's always
Yeah.
so fun to have you on. Just a lot of baseball, and who doesn't love baseball? So thank you guys so much, and as always, have a good day and go A's.